Hello there and welcome to another episode of Roll Again. I'm Steve and today I'm going to be doing an unboxing of some heroic townsfolk miniatures done by Wild Spire Gaming. I found these online. They were a great price, about $24.99 for 18 miniature figures. So I figured, why not give it a shot? I ordered them. They came in the mail in a pretty reasonable amount of time. And so today I figure we'll open up the box together and kind of see what we get for 18 miniatures for $24.99, which seems like a really good deal. So let's open it up together. All right, well, the first thing in there is a little thank you card, and there's a little QVC code that you can scan with your phone to get some free character sheets. So I'll try that a little bit later, let you guys know how it went, but that's a nice little added bonus. Says that there's character sheets for ready-to-play backgrounds for all 18 minis. So that's a pretty good bonus right off the bat. All right, there's a lot of minis in this small pack, which is nice. I open it up. I don't see anything broken. We'll check as we go through, but there's no blister pack plastic, which really is just going in the trash anyway, and I really hate having all that extra plastic that's useless just laying around. So let's dig in. All right, well, the first miniature I've got here looks like a female elf warrior. I think on the website that I found, it said this is an elf royalty or an elf lady, and she's got a long sword in one hand and a short sword or a long dagger in the other hand. She's got armor. It's very well defined. This is a very good sculpt. So I'm pretty impressed with that right off the bat. Just for the price, you're never sure what you're going to get. And this is a really fine looking miniature, actually. I'm really happy with this, actually. I actually, not only could use it as an NPC, this is pushed as heroic townsfolk. So a lot of them are things you could use for NPCs. But to be honest, this could go for, I know a lot of people who could use this to base as their character. In the campaign I'm running right now that I'm DMing, one of my characters, or one of my player characters, is an elf druid, and even though it's got some armor on here, I could actually see her utilizing this as a player character miniature. So this is really well done. The detail is really good on this, and the weapons are not bent, which a lot of times you find. I'm kind of impressed by that too. So I'll put that down here, right in my dice tray. And let's move on to our second one. All right, right out of the gate, we've got, I think in the website they call it a Catfolk, but it's definitely could, for Dungeons and Dragons, definitely could be a Tabaxi. Again, good sculpt. He's in a kind of a overcoat. He's got the tail separate that's coming out. He's got two short swords, one on each side of him. It's a nice little sculpt too, and his hand is kind of up towards his mouth. But this could really be a good player character as well. Tabaxi, I know, is becoming a little bit more popular right now, and that could be definitely a great sculpt. Let's see. The next one, I think on the website it's called a Thug, but it's a male humanoid, bald head, so it could be, you could use it as a half orc, you could use it as a human. Ears look rather rounded, so I'm going to assume it's probably a human, but you could use it as a number of half-breed type humanoids. Spiked shoulder armor. Looks like it has a mace hanging from the side of his belt, has a cape in the back, and again, it's, surprisingly, these are really well molded. They're well sculpted. It looks like you can see there's a little bit of a mold line on the base of this one, but that's basic cleanup stuff, and I expect that with pretty much any minis. Most minis that you order or you buy, or even if you have to put together yourself, you're going to have a lot of cleanup work, or at least a little bit, and so that doesn't surprise me, but definitely it tells me that it's probably from a mold. But it looks really well. It looks really well done. There's little details on the belt, armor on the little spiked armor on the boots and on the knee pads that are on the character. So again, another one is crossing his arms, kind of looks like he's got a little attitude. Could be a captain of a guard as an NPC. I could see a cleric, especially with the mace. I could see a cleric definitely using this as a player character mini. Even maybe a fighter or a paladin, depending if they have a mace as a weapon, a bludgeoning weapon. This definitely would work. So that's 3 for 3. Okay, here we have a fighter wearing a helmet, so it could really be any race. It's a male fighter. Looks like he's wearing a chainmail shirt. Again, has some pouches on the belt. Nice boots, long sword in one hand, nice shield in the other, round shield. So again, could be a guard. I think on the sword's not, it's got a little bit of a tilt to it, but again, it's nothing that can't be corrected quickly with, running under a little bit of warm water and then dunking it in cold water. So again, this is the 4th mini in the box, and it's got a little slant to it, but that's probably just from shipping. So I expect that, but this is a really good looking mini as well, and it could work as a player character, as a fighter, but it definitely can also be an NPC as a guard or even a captain of the guard as well. City Watch, anything like that. It's really good. All right. Oh, so this one's really interesting and it's very unique. I like it a lot, actually. I saw this on the website before I ordered, so I knew it was kind of in the box. I was expecting it, but it's really cool sculpt. It's 2 goblins in a large trench coat or a large robe, a cloak. It looks like it's hooded, so probably some sort of a large cloak. And it's 2 goblins stacked on top of each other. So you can see the face of one goblin come out kind of up here in the opening of the hood, but then the second goblin who's underneath that one is kind of peeking out like the belt area. This is really cool, definitely a really cool NPC. If could be an opponent if you have low-level characters running into goblins, but definitely an interesting NPC. Goblins that are kind of trying to pass off going through town. To be honest, now that goblins can be a player character in D&D, goblins also this could also still be a player character mini. I mean, I could almost see, this kind of inspires me to almost want to do like maybe goblin twins, and have, maybe in a campaign where I'm a player, maybe I would see with the DM if I could play twin goblins that always kind of move together and act together. And that would be a really cool inspiration, especially just from this mini. A lot of these minis so far, that's the 5th mini now. They're all unique sculpts, and they all kind of can inspire people. I know a lot of times myself and other DMs I know will sometimes put minis right out on the table when the beginning of a campaign is happening, and you've got players who are trying to create characters just to give them some inspiration. And I could get a lot of inspiration from some of these sculpts. They're really nice. Here's another really cool original sculpt. We've seen the fighter, we've seen possibly a cleric, we've seen a paladin or an elf warrior, but this is a plague doctor, which is really cool. You don't see it that often. It's got the plague doctor kind of bird mask on underneath a hat. He's carrying almost a medical bag. Again, really cool NPC that could be used. I could see an evil plague doctor or someone using that mask, which is kind of creepy, as an opponent or an evil NPC in a campaign. But I also, again, could be inspiration for a player character. I could see a player character using this as their player character mini, and in inspiring maybe a healer player, maybe a cleric to some sort of a darker god or a god of medicine or healing, and they use that plague mask as some sort of a device, either to protect them or just as kind of part of their oath. a lot of really cool stuff could be done with this mini. And there's a lot of detail on the belt, a lot of little accessories that are kind of attached there, a cape in the back, boots. It's a really nice sculpt. And again, the detail is really nice on these minis. So, all right, now here's kind of our first, what I would say, townsfolk. I mean, all of these could be NPCs in a town, but the first 6 that we pulled could all easily be player characters. This is a larger gentleman, bald-headed, kind of got a little bit of a stomach on him. Not that I should talk, but he's got a rolling pin, and I think in the website they said this is they called him the baker. So here's, just for a normal NPC character, a baker in a town. Maybe he's got some gossip. Maybe he knows what's going on. Maybe he's constantly chasing people out of his, chasing the goblins out that are trying to steal food from him. Whatever the case may be, it's a really nice sculpt. He's got an apron on. He's got the rolling pin in his hand, looking like he's about to swing it at people. And again, just a nice sculpt. I've been very happy with this so far. That's the 7th one that we've pulled out of here. All right, our 8th mini is, I would call like a priest. I think that's what they call them on the website. It could go as a monk. It's kind of really wearing kind of Franciscan monk-like robes. He's got an open book, which, I mean, if it's a priest, I'd imagine could be a Bible or something. But definitely could be a player character. It looks like it has a little bit of a small club on the side, kind of hanging from his belt, just in case anybody wants to mess with him. Definitely kind of humanoid, no pointy ears, so definitely probably a human, I would say. It's kind of smaller in stature, but definitely human sized. But you could also, I could see this as another possible cleric, depending on what their faith is. Maybe there's armor under the robes. You never know, but this could pass as a cleric. Could also pass as a wizard or a sorcerer, and that could be a spell book that's open. So there's a few different options. You could even go with this, again, as a player character or as an NPC. So our next mini, it looks like, is a female dwarf. Looks like a blacksmith. She has a hammer, could be a war hammer even if you want to use this mini as well for a player character. She's got a shield on the other arm. Really great sculpt, again, detail oriented. She is wearing an apron. There's a little anvil on the base. So you could really use this again for an NPC as a blacksmith character, or at the same time, you could actually use her as a player character if you have a dwarf cleric or a dwarf fighter, a number of things. But with the warhammer and the shield, she could definitely be utilized in either aspect. Okay. Oh, here we have a bard, it looks like. And it's I think it says on the website for Spire games, it's a foxfolk, but of course in Dungeons & Dragons it could go as a kitsune, which is kind of a newer player race as well. She's got a lute in her hand. It's a female. She's wearing kind of a dress, quite a bit of detail again here. So you could have a performer NPC in a tavern, or you could also utilize this as a bard, which would be excellent too. Our next miniature up. This one is kind of interesting. It looks like a boulder or rock or bush with legs. In the Spire website, I believe it says it's a spy. So it's supposed to be a spy who is basically taken on a shrub or a bush as a disguise, and you can see his legs kind of sticking out so he can move around. Kind of reminds me of the cartoons I watched as a kid where, Wile E. Coyote or Elmer Fudd or someone trying to sneak up on somebody else would, hide in the bush, and then when no one was looking, they'd get up and move the whole bush. Kind of reminds me of that. So there's a little bit of humor to this, but again, I think it could be a playable piece. The shrub itself has got a lot of kind of indentions, and there's a lot of lot of detail to it as well when you're really looking up close. The legs coming out of the shrub are very detailed. Looks like they're wearing possibly half plate or plate armor. And the boots and the thighs still have quite a bit of detail to them as well. So again, another piece that could be utilized. Here we have a female with a backpack. I think in the website they said it's a female adventurer. And so this could be a player character piece as well. She could be a human or an elf or half elf. You can't really see the ears, but there's a lot of potential there. She's got an explorer's pack on, a few different pouches on her belt, as well as looks like a short sword strapped to her side thigh. And this is a really nice sculpt as well. A lot of times I've seen miniatures where there's a weapon that they've put on the side and they just kind of, they mold it with the leg and it just kind of looks like a bump or a very rough outline. And there's quite a bit of detail here. You can really see the hilt of the short sword as well as the scabbard it's fairly well detailed. So I really like the sculpt as well. Again, could be an NPC, could definitely be a player character. And here we have our first Tiefling. We have a Tiefling, looks like barkeep. He's kind of an older Tiefling, possibly, a little heavy, but he's really nice sculpted tail. He's cleaning out basically looks like an ale mug. He's got nice big ram horns. The Tieflings I know have different types of horns depending on how you choose your character, but he has the big circling kind of ram horns on him. Looks like he might have a little bit of a beard or a goatee. So as a barkeep or a tavern owner, definitely a really good NPC. Could be a reoccurring NPC to utilize. Again, another really good sculpt. All right, here we have, according to the website, I believe it's a female warrior or a female fighter. She could be chainmail. She has her hair, you can see, is covering the ears, so it could be human or elf. Could be elemental. I mean, depending on the paint job, you could really do a lot with these. But again, quite detailed. You can see the cape and the armor is a little different. She has a spear with her, or a lance, could go either way. This is the first one that's actually a little bit bent. So we've actually had 11, 12, 13, 14. This is the 14th piece now, and it's the first one that's come out bent, which is really good. A lot of times when you get a box of miniatures, you get at least a couple that have warped or bent a little bit, even in packing or in transit, depending on the heat and things like that. Again, I'm not concerned about it at all. It's very easy to fix. Just kind of run it under hot water for a little bit and then dunk it in cold water, and you should be able to reshape and hold its shape. But again, I mean, this is the 14th miniature we've looked at. It's the first one that, where there's some kind of a bend. There's still no breaks. I haven't found any broken miniatures, which is really good too, especially in this piece. Here we have, according to the website, I believe it's a proprietress. So she could be the owner of a number of different places. It could be a tavern, could be a shop, could be a brothel. There's a lot of things that she could own. At the same time, she's distinct enough. She's got some belt pouches on her. She's got boots on. She could, you could even make it a player character. There's no weapon on this piece, but a spellcaster, anything like that, female spellcaster, could be utilized as a player character mini with this. But she also be just a great NPC, and that's a nice sculpt as well. Here, this one's kind of funny, but it's I believe it's a Hobgoblin Townsfolk. And so it's a Hobgoblin who apparently has given up his militaristic ways and decided to join the town. And he's waving, and he's got a very pleasant, smiling face on him with his large teeth sticking out. Really nice detail on the ears, the face, and it looks like he's wearing a top hat and an overcoat. But he's got, large hands. They did a really interesting job on this sculpt. I like it a lot. It could be a great NPC. I can see, the way with the top hat and everything, it's definitely a hobgoblin who's trying his best to kind of fit into civilized society. But the detail is really good. You can even see the belly button, which at this scale is really impressive. And it's just a great kind of humorous piece, again, kind of like the Spy was, but I think it could be utilized really well. I could see a hobgoblin NPC who's, even a small town where the mayor's a hobgoblin and he walks around with his top hat on, friendly, waving to people. Here we have a halfling. So this is our first halfling. And it's a halfling female. I believe it's a halfling rogue is what they might call her on the website or some of the attached information that I looked at. She has a ale stein or an ale mug in her hand. She's got a little cape and could easily be a arcane trickster or a rogue, thief. A lot of different opportunities with this female halfling to be a player character, or at the same time just an NPC that they kind of run into at the tavern. So there's a lot of opportunities here too. And again, this one is actually on a smaller base than the others. The others are on a pretty universal medium-sized base. This base is a little bit smaller, but it is just a small. It would be considered a small size mini to begin with. But the detail is really good again with this too. So that brings us to our last and 18th miniature. And this is a goblin. I was looking forward to this, actually. I told you earlier I was really excited about the two goblins who were stacked up on top of each other in the trench coat or under the robe or cloak. I thought that was pretty cool. This is another goblin. He's got goggles on. It looks like he has a book in his hand. He's got his little explorer pack on. Has a bag or a satchel, could be a bag of holding. Again, this could be a really cool NPC player, or at the same time, I think goblins are now a playable character race, and they've been made a little bit popular by like Not in Critical Role, but I think that there's a lot more potential for people to utilize goblins as playable races. As a DM, I've even thought about possibly doing a one-shot or a campaign where maybe all of the adventurers are goblins in different types of classes, which I think would be really cool, as well as also some of the role playing that could take part with the stuff that they had to go through being goblins and kind of overcoming that with other races. But this could be a great player character piece. I like the Goblin Allah. He could be a lot of things. He could be a spellcaster. He's got the books in his hand. He could be an artificer, which is definitely an option, especially with the artificer being a playable class now in Eberron Rising from the Last War. Or he could be a tinkerer. There's a lot of different options that I think would look really good with this goblin piece. It's a really great piece. Again, highly detailed for the size. I'm really impressed, especially, like I said, the cost was what I would consider lower end or very reasonable. $24.99 for 18 minis is really a great price. And the thing that I really like about this is we have 18 miniatures and they're all unique. There's no duplicates, all unique sculpts. They're very diversified. There's a lot of different playable races. There's a lot of different classes that are involved here. Some townsfolk, but a lot of them that could double as NPCs or playable characters. As I said earlier, there's a lot of opportunity here to put some of these miniatures out and give inspiration to players who are developing new characters. And I think that I could use some as well, even from the DM standpoint, as looking for new and memorable NPC characters. Looking at some of these and getting a little bit of inspiration from these very different, very detailed miniatures. So all in all, my review of the Wildspire Games heroic Townsfolk miniatures is very positive. I give it a, if I'm going to give it a grade, I would say it's an A minus maybe. But I don't really know. There's not a whole lot of bad side that I found with this. Packaging was good. Like I said, even though there was no blister pack, which I really like because it's just extra trash to throw out, there was no breaks. There was only one bend, and it was a really long, thin spear, which I expected would have a little bit of a bend to it after packaging and shipping. But again, fixable, not a problem. There's a little bit of mold line on some of the bases, but that too is very fixable. And to be honest, there's rarely do I get miniatures where you don't have to do a little cleanup work, whether it's mold lines, whether it's just little pieces of that spilled out of a mold, little stuff that you have to just fix as you clean up with your craft knife or your X-Acto knife. So none of that really is a big concern to me. I think this is a great deal. I know that Wildspire Games, this is their first set of miniatures that came out, but I'm really pleased with it. I gotta tell you, I'm a big fan. Hey everybody, just wanted to cut in with a quick update. I was able to paint up 2 of the Wildspire miniatures that I really enjoyed. The Elf Nobility or Elf Warrior, as well as the Goblins in a Trench Coat, which was one of my favorites. And so I've got some up-close pictures that I'll attach right after this at the end of the video. But I also wanted to touch base because there's a little bit more to this $24.99 packaging than I even thought originally. At the beginning of the video, I told you that I thought it was a great price, 18 distinct individual unique miniatures, highly detailed for $24.99 is a steal. Plus they had this card where you could scan it and it would bring you to a website where you could download what it says on the card is free character sheets, a character sheet for each mini. They kind of underplayed themselves because I did this. I followed along the instructions, and not only did I get the character sheets, but they were part of a 76-page adventurer's guide that's completely free for download when you purchase the miniatures. There was at least 3 or 4 different adventures for characters at different levels, all throughout this city and area that was created by the people who designed the miniatures. And it goes along with using the miniatures as NPCs, player characters, things like that in these adventures. That's really a heck of a deal because, I mean, you could spend, 10, 15, upwards of $30, even $50 sometimes for adventure guides, depending on where, what company and who makes them. So to have a 76-page adventure guide plus character sheets as part of that, and then the 18 distinct miniatures for $24.99, I think is a steal. So I'm going to recommend that you jump online, look up Wildspire Gaming, check out their Townsfolk miniatures that are out right now. Like I said, I think October 2020, they're supposed to have another line of heroes and monsters coming out. I'm super excited about that, especially when I saw how well these miniatures painted up. This is definitely going to be a part of my minis that get used a lot. So definitely check out the Wildspire miniatures. Just so you guys know, this was not a paid review or sponsorship. Wildspire did not at all pay me or even send me free minis. I found these on the internet, bought them myself, and I just did a completely unbiased review. If it sounds like I'm kind of gushing over them, I'm going to be honest, it's because I really liked them a lot. I was really surprised, and I was really happy with what I got. And so hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on the next set that's coming out, and I'll do a review of those as well. Some of the upcoming videos we've got, I'm going to do a couple reviews of or some unboxing videos. Again, I've got unboxing of a few Craigslist groups of minis that I was able to get a hold of, and we'll check those out, as well as a few miniatures that I purchased at the store. And I'm also going to have a few videos coming up that have to do with actually playing Dungeons and Dragons. Things like class discussion, if you want to be a fighter, if you want to be a wizard, a warlock, a paladin, and discussing a little bit of the pros and the cons of each of the classes. So please subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed this. Leave some comments in the descriptions. And as always, I'm Steve from Roll Again. And most importantly, keep playing and have fun.